I want you all to think of the dynamics of an argument. Now, an argument arises when there is a conflict of opinion, often. So, how do you resolve a conflict of opinion? Well, firstly, you need to identify the topic that is being discussed and the topic that is being conflicted over. And then you need to identify the mechanics of that situation and compare that with what is right, what is acceptable, and what isn't. Now, unfortunately, that process, many people are incapable of doing that. And many people now have been led to believe that that's not the process. The process is all about arguing, and whoever is able to win the argument through presenting whatever they want to present makes them right and the winner. Sadly, what we are presented with in terms of law has gone down that route as well, on the grounds that this notion of legal argument is about two opposing sides presenting a case, presenting a side of an argument, and it's an argument against each other, and which argument wins the legal case. And that's what we are presented with often in many dramas on TV or films, and that's the notion. The reality is, all that needs to be compared is a factual analysis of the situation and the comparison of that with what is right and what is wrong. What is right? These rules, these conventions that we have developed over centuries for the for the benefit of a civilized society. Instead of that, what we get is desire-driven individuals wanting their side, wanting their way, wanting their outcome, and arguing for it without any consideration for facts and for truth. And the techniques that they use are to divert people's attention. Look over there, look at that, look at that. And divert your attention from focusing on what is real and what is true. And this is something that we're seeing being played out in front of us. So, I don't want you to argue with fools in the comment section. I want you to have clarity of thought and pass that clarity of thought onto other people. How other people think with clarity. Okay, get them to focus on what is important and clearly identify that, stick to that, not divert down different pathways, going on different arguments because they don't actually identify the wrong that we're discussing. Okay, so at the USA Grand Prix, we witnessed Max Verstappen drive Lando Norris off the track by leaving the track himself. At the Mexican Grand Prix, we witnessed Max Verstappen leave the track by driving Lando Norris off the track. 2 of the last 3 Grand Prix, we have all witnessed that wrongdoing. Clear wrongdoing. What are we seeing now? Oh, a masterclass. Okay. We're getting a diversion. We're getting a manufactured diversion to now take our attention away from something that is critically wrong in this sport. So let's bring ourselves back to what is the problem and the fact that throughout the course of this season alone, there's been controversy with the legality of the Red Bull car. There's been controversy with Max Verstappen's driving and the lack of appropriate punishment. And to divert from that, what we're getting instead is this.
I have a quick question here. I mean, I appreciate all of you being here, but I don't see any British press. They have had to run to the airport, or they don't know where they don't know where the
the fluffers there. Oh, Max is so funny. Oh, Max here is so funny, Max.
press. They don't know where the press conference is. You know?
Yeah, that's it.
Max is a comedian. You know, Max super chill, super chilled. Max, yeah, thinks he's king of the castle.
Fair question. That's a fair question.
I have a quick question here. I mean, I appreciate all of you being here, but I don't see any British press. They have had to run to the airport, or they don't know where they don't know where the press conference is. You know?
Yeah, that's a fair question. That's a fair question.
So, we have a driver like Max Verstappen who has evaded consequence for his wrongdoing, and he wants to point the finger. Oh, the problem here is the bias in reporting of the British press, the bias of the British stewards utilised by the Formula One and the FIA. And it's their bias, it is their national bias being biased towards the Brits and against the Dutch that's the problem here, not Max Verstappen's driving standards. So let's examine what the problem is, and let's see the validity of what Max Verstappen is projecting, because this is what it's all about. And again, what we will get, which I want you to ignore, is comments in the comments section going, oh, you are a Max Verstappen hater. Why is this comment so toxic? Why is this video so toxic? I'm just explaining facts. If these are things that you don't like, okay, change your feelings, because you can't change these facts. So Max presents that the British journalists are biased against him. Max was guilty of driving Lando Norris, a British driver who was ahead of him going into a corner, off the track at that USA Grand Prix. Max Verstappen was guilty of driving Lando Norris off the track, a British driver, at the Mexican Grand Prix. Which British journalist has actually identified the true nature of those offences? None of them. Why are they not identifying that? And yet Max presents himself as the victim. The sport of Formula One is governed by rules and regulations. Here they are, look. And as we scroll down here, and this is available to the British press, to British journalists, and yet none of them are capable of referencing this when identifying the dynamics of a situation. And all you need to do is go down here. See it says number 33, driving, and that is on page 40. See, it's quite easy to do because you can look at the contents at the start, and that will guide you to where you need to go. So we'll go now to page 40. So you need to bear with me. I know it's a little bit boring. Too long this video is already. I'm switched off already because it's not flashing images, and I'm bored. Oh, I've already switched off the video because it's so boring. Nobody can be bothered to scroll through an article or to read anything. It's boring. Unless it's right there, I've switched off already. What page was I needing to go to? Oh, I forgot already. Will I need to scroll back to the start, or have I not got the brain of a goldfish? Can I remember it was page 40? Let me know what you think in the comments section. We'll get there. See, some of you that are quick readers, you might have read this so far. In fact, it is taking too long. Let's get there. Let's scroll down a bit. What are we on now? Need to go a bit further. 31, bit more, bit more, bit more. For scrutineering, I think it was article 30. I think that's too low down. No, I was wrong. See, I can accept my mistakes when I'm wrong. We need page 40. We're nearly there. 38. Changes of driver. Driving. Here we are. Article 33. Driving. So, the driver must drive the car alone and unaided. Okay? So even the notion of giving your driver coaching around the track is no longer allowed. Unaided as well in terms of mechanical devices that actually give them additional control of the vehicle through the mechanics of the car, compensating for brake force distribution across an axle. Yeah, that's not allowed. Anyway, 33.2. Drivers must observe the provisions of the code relating to driving behaviour on circuits at all times. So I will take us to that as soon as I've read through this. Very important, this is the FIA International Sporting Code, the appendix that relates to the driving around circuits. Drivers must observe the provisions of the code relating to driving behaviour on circuits at all times. So this is in the regulations of the sport. 33.3. Drivers must make every reasonable effort to use the track at all times and may not leave the track without justifiable reason. So, can you provide me with a justifiable reason why Max Verstappen left the track at the USA Grand Prix and why Max Verstappen left the track at the Mexican Grand Prix? Both times with a car, knowing that there was a car on his outside, forcing that other car off the track. Now, what we are now presented with is that Max Verstappen is an incredible driver. The control that Max had, the incredible ability that Max had in Brazil was a masterclass, which demonstrates just how incredible Max is. Well, he was able to control it in conditions where everybody else was losing control, and yet in conditions where other drivers can keep their car under control, Max was displaying that he wasn't in control of his car because he was driving off the track, driving another car off the track. What's the problem here? The problem is there's a driver driving other competitors off the track. That's the facts of the situation. There is no argument. There would be people that will come here to argue a point. There's no argument. That's a statement of fact. At the US Grand Prix, Max Verstappen drove Lando Norris off the track. That is a fact. At the Mexican Grand Prix, Max Verstappen drove Lando Norris off the track. That's a fact. That's not an argument. So, with him having done that, we now need to impose a penalty. Let's continue reading this before we further that. So, drivers will be judged to have left the track if no part of the car remains in contact with it, and for the avoidance of doubt, any white lines defining the track edges are considered to be part of the track, but the curbs are not. So, if you've gone over the white line and no part of your car is in contact with the white line, you have left the track. No argument. Should a car leave the track, the driver may rejoin. However, this may only be done when it is safe to do so and without gaining a lasting advantage. At the absolute discretion of the race director, a driver may be given the opportunity to give back the whole or any advantage he gained by leaving the track. So, USA 2024, the COTA Grand Prix. Going into that corner, which the stewards have decided miraculously that Max was ahead, despite there being clear evidence that Lando Norris was clearly ahead. Okay, so Lando Norris is the lead car. Max Verstappen carries too much speed into the corner, cannot keep his car on the track. Lando Norris is forced off the track, rejoins in the lead, and Max demands that he is given the place back. Max demands that he is given the advantage. He was behind. He demands that he is given third place rather than the fourth place that he was in entering that corner. That is a narcissistic abuser. This is somebody that is, well, there's other words that it's possible to describe these people. People idolize that. That's a problem. And I'm not going to argue with you, anybody. If you like that, that's your personal choice. These aren't things that should be lauded in this world. These are the sorts of things that should be highlighted to people in this world as being entirely wrong. Not going to argue, it's just wrong. Anyway, so let's just read through that bit again. Should a car leave the track, the driver may rejoin. However, this may only be done when it is safe to do so and without gaining any lasting advantage. So, the Mexican Grand Prix. Driving towards a corner, Lando Norris was in second position in that race. He'd been already driven off the track when he was attempting an overtake around the outside of Max Verstappen. He was ahead of Max Verstappen, as defined by what they decided as being their own criteria in at the COTA Grand Prix, which was the wrong criteria anyway. Ultimately, what happened is Lando Norris attempted a valid overtaking manoeuvre around the outside, heading into a chicane. He was in a zone of the track that enabled him to be left track space. He was entitled to it. Max didn't give it him. Max drove him off the track. Therefore, Lando rejoined ahead of Max. Not a problem. He shouldn't. The penalty there is driving another car off the track. Lando rejoined in second, was second going up towards the next corner complex, and then Max sent one up the inside, totally out of control, drove Lando off the track. Lando dropped from second to fourth. Max remained in third, but what he did, it enabled Charles Leclerc to go through into second. Max retained his position, so he gained an advantage by retaining his place, but disadvantaging the guy that he put off the track. That is gaining an advantage. Gained an advantage over Lando Norris through that manoeuvre. He wasn't asked to give it back. Although they gave him a penalty, he was enabled to remain on track to the detriment of Lando Norris for many laps beyond that moment in time. What was done about it? Not enough. Did the stewards penalise that offence enough? Max was enabled to impact Lando Norris's race by around about 11.5 seconds loss to Carlos Sainz. And for being able to do that, Max was penalised just 10 seconds. That is not an appropriate punishment for the crime. 33.4. At no time may a car be driven unnecessarily slowly, erratically, or in a manner which could be deemed potentially dangerous to other drivers or any other person. And that is the type of driving that we saw Sergio Perez exhibit at Abu Dhabi 2021. So this is in the regulations. Those regulations, just through application of what is just written in front of your eyes now, easily dictate that Max Verstappen's driving is unacceptable and breaches that. When you break it down into slightly further detail, we have this, which is the Appendix L of the International Sporting Code. Again, the Code of Driving Conduct on Circuits, which is what it is referring to in the regulations that I've just read. So the regulations, Article 33 of the regulations, relate to this. Already what's written in what I've just read out is enough to define that Max Verstappen's driving is unacceptable, and instead, added to that is this. Okay, a car alone on the track may use the full width. We've read through this bit before. B, overtaking, according to the circumstances, may be carried out on either the right or the left. A driver may not leave the track without justifiable reason. Being crowded off the track is a justifiable reason. You have no option, otherwise you end up in a collision. More than one change of direction to defend a position is not permitted. Any driver moving back towards a racing line, having earlier defended his position, should leave at least one car width between his own car and the edge of the track on approach to a corner, so you're not allowed to crowd anybody off track. However, manoeuvres liable to hinder other drivers, such as deliberate crowding of a car beyond the edge of the track, or any other abnormal change of direction, are strictly prohibited. Max has crowded Lando off the track at the USA Grand Prix. He's crowded Lando off the track at the Mexican Grand Prix. Manoeuvres of such are strictly prohibited. Drivers like George Russell got penalised for that. The level of his penalty was reduced because they determined that George Russell was in control of his car when he performed that manoeuvre. He wasn't sufficiently in control of his car to not commit the infringement. So he's not in control of his car. But they determined that, because he stayed on track, which isn't the criteria, is it? The criteria is you're not allowed to push somebody else off. So it doesn't matter whether you stay on the track or not. If you've pushed somebody else off, not left them track room when they're entitled to be there, then you've committed an infringement. The fact that you've remained on the track is irrelevant. But the stewards, because they want to present it this way, want to say, oh, well, he did keep control of his car because he didn't go off the car himself. He wasn't totally out of control. So rather than give him a 10-second penalty, we'll just give him a 5-second penalty. When the offence is, has he left the other car track room? No, he hasn't. There's your infringement. 10 seconds. A suitable penalty for the crime. Max Verstappen didn't keep his own car on the track. He drove with such aggression, with such malice, that he didn't care about keeping his own car on track. Strictly prohibited by the rules and regulations of the sport. Okay, a clear, strictly prohibited, it just says it there. Any driver who appears guilty of any of the above offences will be reported to the stewards. Drivers must use the track at all times and may not leave the track without a justifiable reason. For the avoidance of doubt, the white lines define it. So we've seen that bit before. Lasting advantage. Causing a collision. Repetition or serious mistakes of the appearance of a lack of control over the car, such as leaving the track, will be reported to the stewards and may entail the imposition of penalties up to and including the disqualification of any driver concerned. Understand that. Causing a collision, and let's be clear, unless the other drivers involved, which was Lewis Hamilton in 2021, it's now Lando Norris in 2024. Had the other driver not taken evasive action, there would have absolutely been collisions. Repetition of serious mistakes, such as driving your car off the track when there is a presence of another car, okay, or the appearance of a lack of control over the car. Max, you're told, is driving a masterclass. Never put a foot wrong in the wet conditions of Brazil. That's a masterclass. Why couldn't he do that in the USA? Why couldn't he do that in Mexico? How come he's going off track there, in the dry, when he's got the grip, when he's got the visibility, when they're no longer factors? He can do it when the grip is limited. He can do it when the visibility is restricted. Although that being said, once you're out the front, the visibility is much better for you. You've not got the interference of spray that everybody that's behind has got. That's why you get 17 fastest laps, because you're the one with the clear visibility and everybody else having to deal with spray. But that's incredible, isn't it, everybody? I'm not arguing with you. That's what it is. It doesn't make me a hater for stating facts and explaining the dynamics of a situation. This is not a debate. This is not an argument. This is a clear statement of the dynamics of a situation. Therefore, we can identify what is the problem, what has actually taken place. There is nobody going, yeah, but, what about something else? What about something else? Yeah, none of it matters. It's not an argument. I'm not here to argue. I'm here to tell you what it is. So anybody that jumps up in the comments section, don't argue with them. Ignore them. If you want to comment to add to this, then please add with your perspective. Absolutely fine. But let's not get into arguments with fools who want to divert attention from what is really going on and the true dynamics of the situation, which are now being diverted away from to focus your attention on the next argument and the next argument and Max's next piece of greatness, amazing greatness. Yeah? Divert away from the crimes of Max Verstappen. Ensure that, the attention is drawn elsewhere now. We've moved on from that already. Move on already. Forget the atrocities. Forget that he hasn't been punished for the atrocities. Move on, move on, move on. Nobody wants to see a consequence for the perpetrator of the wrongdoing. No. If somebody is perpetrated, there needs to be a consequence. If there is no consequence, the perpetrator will continue to perpetrate. The victim will continue to be the victim. If we need a world where we stand for fairness and for what is right, when somebody commits an act that is not acceptable and wrong, we don't accept, but what about, no, you've done something that is wrong. It's clearly identified as doing something that is wrong in the context of the situation that we are identifying, and therefore there are no mitigating circumstances. You will receive punishment for the crime that you've committed. It's nothing to do with the British bias that we want to project. Pretend that the only reason the problem is here is because of British journalists not liking the Dutch driver. The truth is, the British journalists aren't saying the things that I am saying. Where is the problem? We have a driver projecting that he is the victim, the driver who is the perpetrator, projecting himself as the victim, projecting himself as being on the receiving end of bad publicity from British journalists. And those British journalists are actually presenting a case for Max Verstappen. They're the ones that aren't identifying the true nature of his driving and how that nature of that driving is in relation to the rules and regulations of this sport. And the fact that the true level of the penalties imposed for that sort of driving should be race bans, race suspensions, black flags, disqualification from races. And that Max Verstappen is being enabled to get away with that by the sport and only being hit with token penalties by those stewards, that again Max Verstappen is allowed to the platform of the media to project to the world that once again he is the victim. Max only got these penalties because the stewards are British and they hate Max and they're giving him the penalty. No, Max Verstappen has clearly driven another car off the track and left the track. That is not acceptable. Here is the rules that dictate that that is not acceptable. Therefore, you will get a penalty, a severe penalty for that, and the penalty was meagre. So, I'm not interested in the way that things get dressed up. I'm not interested in an argument. I'm not interested in somebody trying to create a case for Max Verstappen to try and win an argument by bringing into it, oh, well, it's the steward that. To try and validate and justify and draw attention away from the actual reality of what Max has done by presenting, oh, it's the stewards, they're British and they don't like Max. Oh, nobody knows the rules. Oh, it's the media that have got this problem that are making out that Max is committing the offences. No, it's clear that Max is committing those offences. But this is what we get. We get this dynamic to create conflicts, to create the notion of an argument. It's not an argument. Did Max drive Lando off the track? Yes, he did. There is no argument. Therefore, you apply a penalty. Very clear. Binary. It happened. There's no argument. Yes or no. Did it happen? Yes, it happened. There is your penalty. No, yeah, but it's the stewards being British. No, yeah, but it's the press not liking Max. Oh, but Max is now the best you've ever seen and he can drive with such control. That's what gets rammed down people's throat now. Incredible control. We haven't seen that, have we? We didn't see that incredible control at Hungary, where again Max launched one down the inside and caused a collision with Lewis Hamilton. Oh, Lewis could have left him more room there. It's Lewis's fault. Lewis's fault. And this happened countless times. Time and time and time again. And what it's created, I'm just talking truth. I'm telling you what happened, what did take place, how that was punished, which wasn't sufficiently enough. And what are we then? We find ourselves in a situation whereby the way it's reported by media isn't an accurate reflection of what has actually taken place. The penalties imposed by the governing body of the sport are not commensurate with the infringement. They're too lenient. We have the driver, who is the guilty perpetrator of driving like that, enabled on a global media platform to project that he is the victim of the situation, the victim of stewarding decisions, the victim of bad publicity by British press. Diverting people's minds, diverting people's attention, creating conflict, tribalising people, and the whole thing is toxic. Who is exposing those dynamics? Who is challenging those dynamics? Who is standing for what is right and what is wrong and what is acceptable and what isn't? And the answer to that is nobody. Why? And like I say, all I've done in this video is clearly, or the best, I might have another go at it. In fact, I'm not going to have another go at myself, but if I had another go at it, I perhaps could be slightly clearer in what I'm saying. But what I'm trying to do is articulate in a very clear manner, this is what has taken place. These are the rules of the sport. What has taken place has breached the rules of the sport, and the penalty imposed for the impact that he has had has not been appropriate. Nobody in the media has ever revealed that, and instead what we are presented with is that Max feels that he is the victim of steward bias and press bias, and the press is now lauding Max as being great. That is the dynamics of what is going on. Now, people live in a different reality. People will want to defend their hero. Yeah, but I think, but I love, oh, I think he's great. Okay, that's nice for you. I'm not going to argue with what you like. You're entitled to like what you like. But those are the rules. That's what he did. And what he did isn't in accordance with the rules. I don't care what you think. What you think is irrelevant. That is what is. And what we need in this world are clear parameters, a clear identification of what has taken place, whether or not it contravenes those rules and regulations. And when it is determined that yes, indeed, that is a contravention, something that is extremely easy to do in these type of circumstances. Why? Because we have video evidence of something actually taking place. So therefore, it's very easy to say, look, that is what is going on. We can all see this with our eyes, and hence, that is the infringement. Here is the penalty. Next. No argument. But we're creating this world where everything is up for debate. Everything is, there's two sides. Everybody's entitled to their opinion about it. And with that, everything just descends into an argument, into chaotic argument, where we can try and bring into the argument things that are completely irrelevant. Factors that, oh, it's all about bias, this is. It's all about your nationality, this is. It's all about who you like, this is. It's nothing to do with any of those things. All it is a clear identification of what has happened here, who has done what, and is that in accordance with these parameters. No, it's not. There's the penalty. Doesn't matter your nationality, doesn't matter the team that you're driving for, doesn't matter your championship position. Have you left the track? Have you driven another car off the track? Yes, you have. There's clear evidence of that. There's your penalty. Oh, it's only because they don't like me. No. No. Why is the world as such that things are presented to us in this way? Why is the world as such that this is how we are now? It is normal that this is what people descend into, is to arguing over such clear matters which aren't up for debate. They clearly happened. Why are we arguing? Who's directing that? Who's enabling that? Why do we not have a world whereby there's clear wrongdoing and everybody is capable of just saying, yeah, that's clearly wrong. We can clearly see with our own eyes that that's wrong, and therefore that's a punishable offence. Too easy that is, isn't it? So it's when you start thinking about things that way that then makes you ask the question, why? And when you actually think about what the answers could be, it's that by setting a society up that is conditioned to accept this process of an argument, well, somebody being able to argue for something that they've done that's wrong and try and present that their innocence through presenting an argument to absolve themselves of consequence enables perpetrators to get away without consequence for their actions. Who does it benefit? The perpetrator, those who seek to do things wrong. And they're the ones that are trying to direct us to accept that and tell us that we're powerless to overcome that. And this is where we need to stand for what is right. So that'll do on this video. Now let's get back to thinking straight. What we've been presented with after Brazil is the latest in doubling down on this notion of somebody being great. After 2 Grand Prix where that driver should have been black flagged both races. Divert your attention. Look over there, everybody. Look over there. Just divert your attention, make you forget about the past. Make you forget about what has just gone on. Keep the arguments going, keep the show rolling. Make people lose their energy to fight for something, because there's never any change, is there? So you're wasting your time arguing about it. You're wasting your time campaigning about it. Just move on, accept it and move on. That's what they want us to do. If we accept it and we move on, they get away with doing it the way they want it done. All part of the narrative, all part of the dynamics of this, what's actually going on here. So put your mind to that. Think about that. Open your minds. Regulations are there in black and white. Clear parameters of what's acceptable and what isn't. None of this made up media bullshit by Karun Chandok saying, well, here are the overtaking guidelines and, Max is the expert of those, and nowhere does it say that the car being overtaken, Max was the overtaking car, so again they dressed this up completely the wrong way around, has to remain on the track. Utter lies. Read this. You got Karun Chandok, the expert presented by Sky Sports, telling you something that is contrary to the regulations that I've just read to you. Clear regulations that say you can't drive off the track, you can't drive out of control, and if you do, you're going to get a penalty. Causing a collision, repetition of serious mistakes, or the appearance of a lack of control of the car, such as leaving the track, which is what he did in both the USA and in Mexico, will be reported to the stewards and may entail the imposition of penalties up to and including the disqualification of any driver concerned. And yet Karun Chandok will tell you all, oh, nowhere does it say in these guidelines that I'm showing you that Max has to stay on the track. You're being lied to. We're all being lied to. That's the media lying to you. Why would they do that? Why do we have media that cannot clearly refer to these existing regulations that are in black and white and clearly identify this is what they say, this is what he's done, he's in the wrong? Oh, we're scared that Max might call that bias. It's not bias. It's somebody that's able to identify the difference between right and wrong. That's not bias. That's just somebody with the capability of determining the difference between right and wrong. You're not the victim. You're the perpetrator, Max. So, good people out there, think clearly. Don't get involved in arguing with these AI bots that come here to create the controversy. Don't get into argument with the teenage wank boy that come here because that is their lives. They get off on getting a reaction out of people when they're tapping away at their keyboard from their bedrooms. Okay, don't do it. All right, stay with what is true. Talk to other people about what is true. Share what is true. YouTube is not going to recommend it to them, so you need to help what is true be realized by other people, by you passing the information on and you sharing the content, because otherwise they will not get to see it. Instead, they will just get to see the fluff articles talking about this so-called British bias, talking about this so-called masterclass by Max Verstappen. All of it bullshit. Thank you for your time.